Welcome to The Deep Dive. Today, we're going deep into the world of Francisco Goya.
Oh, Goya.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Spanish master
Yeah.
who painted everything from royal portraits
Hmm.
to those kind of unsettling visions.
Right.
Um, and we've got a fascinating set of descriptions covering 12 of his works.
Wow.
I'm really eager to unpack how Goya's art reflects his times.
Okay.
Expert speaker. What themes or patterns emerge for you when you look at these 12 pieces altogether?
Well, it's like you're stepping into 18th century Spain
Okay.
with all its contradictions.
Oh, interesting.
You see Goya painting for the elite,
Right.
folks like the Countess of Chinchon and the Marquesa de Pontejos,
Mm-hmm.
capturing their world in these grand portraits.
Right.
But then
Yep.
he turns his attention to scenes from daily life,
Okay.
religious figures,
Uh-huh.
even allegorical tales like his allegory of love, Cupid, and Psyche.
Yeah.
This variety speaks to Goya's versatility,
Right.
but it also hints at the shifting ground beneath Spanish society at the time.
That's so interesting that it's not just about Goya being a talented artist,
Right.
but him almost acting like a historical mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I find striking is how these descriptions mention other artists.
Uh-huh.
For example, the portrait of the Marquesa de Pontejos
Right.
is said to echo the style of Velázquez,
Yeah.
another big name in Spanish art.
Of course.
Can you remind us who Velázquez was
Right.
and why this comparison matters?
Velázquez was a giant of the Spanish Baroque period,
Okay.
famous for his lifelike realism and the way he used light and shadow.
Yeah.
Think of his masterpiece, Las Meninas.
Oh, yeah.
The way he plays with perspective
Mm-hmm.
and captures the subtle expressions on each face.
All right.
Goya deeply admired Velázquez,
Okay.
even copying his works to learn the master's secrets.
Hmm.
So when you see those pale tones and
Yeah.
silvery gray greens in Goya's Marquesa,
Yeah.
it's like seeing Velázquez's influence shimmering through.
It's almost as if artists have these conversations through the ages, isn't it? Building on what came before.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the descriptions mentions a missing image,
Mm-hmm.
part of a set commissioned by the Dukes of Osuna for their estate.
Wow.
I'm curious, what do we know about the Dukes?
Okay.
And why might this missing piece be significant?
Well, the Dukes of Osuna were serious art patrons,
Okay,
basically the big-time investors of their day.
got it.
Goya did a ton of work for them,
Wow.
showing just how intertwined an artist's career could be with these powerful figures.
Yeah.
This missing image from their estate,
Right.
El Capricho,
Uh-huh.
is like a lost chapter in Goya's story.
It really is.
It makes you wonder, what was he trying to express in this set as a whole?
Right.
And what might that missing piece reveal?
It's so intriguing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got these grand patrons,
Mm-hmm.
nods to earlier masters like Velázquez.
Yep.
It seems like influences were swirling around Goya.
Right.
The description for St. Gregory the Great mentions yet another artist,
Okay.
Murillo. What can you tell us about Murillo
Yeah.
and how his work might have impacted Goya's?
Well, Murillo was a master of the Spanish Baroque,
Okay.
known for his religious scenes and depictions of everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
His paintings often have this ethereal,
Yeah.
almost heavenly quality,
Right.
bathed in soft light and vibrant colors.
Mm-hmm.
Think of his famous Immaculate Conception paintings.
Oh, I see.
The interesting thing is,
Yeah.
even though Goya developed his own distinctive style,
Okay.
he wasn't afraid to borrow from others.
Right.
So in St. Gregory the Great,
Yeah.
you can almost sense Murillo's influence in the way Goya uses light
Right.
and creates that feeling of spiritual intensity.
It makes you wonder if artists are always sort of remixing what came before,
Yeah,
finding new ways to express things.
I think so.
One of the descriptions really caught my eye.
Oh, yeah.
The one for Allegory of Love, Cupid, and Psyche.
Okay.
It mentions that the model for Psyche
Mm-hmm.
might be the same woman who appears in Goya's famous Magas paintings,
Interesting.
and even potentially in another portrait.
Wow.
This idea of a recurring model,
Right.
maybe someone from Goya's real life
Yeah.
weaving through his work, is just so intriguing. What are your thoughts on this connection?
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Ah,
Think of it this way.
okay.
Goya's Majas are these iconic images,
Right.
one closed, one nude,
Yeah.
capturing both the allure and the mystery of femininity.
Right.
If this same model appears as Psyche
Yeah.
in his Allegory of Love,
Mm-hmm.
it adds another layer to how we understand those paintings.
That's really interesting.
Is Goya exploring different facets of womanhood?
Mm-hmm.
Is he using this model to represent some ideal of beauty or desire.
Right.
It's like he's inviting us to decode a hidden message within his work.
It's like finding a secret code embedded in these paintings.
Exactly.
And then the potential connection to this other portrait,
Yeah.
the Marquesa de Lizan,
Uh-huh.
makes it even more tantalizing. Who was this woman? And what was her relationship to Goya?
Yeah,
It makes you want to dig deeper into his life
I know.
and see how it intersects with his art.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes Goya so compelling.
Yeah.
He was a master of technique,
Hmm.
but he also had this keen eye for observation.
Right.
He captured the grand spectacle of his time,
Uh-huh.
but also the subtle nuances of human relationships.
Agree.
Speaking of those nuances,
Okay.
there's a work here that seems to capture a more lighthearted side of Goya's observations.
Oh.
The drawing, it's a pity you don't have something else to do.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about this drawing
Right.
and what it reveals about Goya's social commentary?
Imagine this. In late 18th century Spain,
Okay.
it was all the rage for the aristocracy to play at being peasants.
What?
They'd dress up in rustic clothes,
Oh, wow.
pretend to do farm chores,
Hmm.
basically romanticizing a life they were totally detached from.
Oh, interesting.
Goya captures this trend in this drawing, but you can almost sense a wink in his eye.
I see.
The title itself, "It's a pity you don't have something else to do,"
Right.
has this subtle irony to it, like
Yeah.
he's gently poking fun at the whole charade.
It's like he's saying, come on, people, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
But in a clever artistic way.
right.
It shows how Goya used his art not just to document,
Yeah.
but also to comment on the world around him.
Exactly. He was a master observer of human behavior,
Right.
and he wasn't afraid to use his art to expose hypocrisy or highlight the absurdities of his time.
And this brings us to another fascinating aspect of Goya's work.
Okay.
The evolution of his style and subject matter over time.
Right.
We have 3 works that span from his time as a court painter to his later years in France.
Okay.
Self-Portrait with Dr. Arrieta, The Forge, and the drawing, They Are Dying.
Mm-hmm.
Expert speaker, what shifts do you see in Goya's later works compared to what we've discussed so far?
Well, you can almost trace Goya's life journey through these pieces.
Yeah.
The self-portrait with Dr. Arrieta is deeply personal.
Mm-hmm.
Painted in 1820 after Goya recovered from a serious illness.
Okay.
You see this gratitude towards the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
but also this awareness of his own mortality.
Wow.
The Forge, from around the same time,
Yeah.
is a powerful image of labor,
Right.
highlighting the strength and resilience of everyday people.
Okay.
It's a stark contrast to those elegant portraits of the elite we discussed earlier.
It's like he's shifting his focus, paying attention to a different segment of society.
Right.
And then there's They Are Dying,
Yeah.
which comes from an album he compiled in Bordeaux, France, where he lived in exile. This drawing seems particularly dark, even for Goya.
Yeah.
What does it tell us about his state of mind during this period?
They Are Dying is incredibly haunting. It's a stark depiction of human fragility and suffering, reflecting the political turmoil and personal losses Goya experienced in his later years.
Yeah.
Living in exile, removed from his familiar world, his art becomes a space to confront these darker themes.
Yeah.
Death, injustice, the precariousness of life.
Okay.
It's like he's wrestling with the big questions of existence.
It's amazing how his art becomes this window into not just his era, but also his internal world.
Right.
And speaking of artistic expression,
Yep.
one detail caught my eye. The description for Bullfight, Suerte de Varas,
Okay.
mentions Goya experimenting with different techniques in his later works.
Mhm.
Can you talk about what these techniques might have been
Sure.
and how they set his later works apart?
Well, that's where Goya truly becomes a bridge between the 18th and 19th centuries.
Okay.
In his later years, he moves away from the polished, refined style of his earlier work,
Right.
embracing a looser, more expressive approach.
Interesting.
Think bold brushstrokes, layers of paint, creating texture, playing with light and shadow to heighten the drama.
So it's not just the subject matter that's changing, but the very way he's putting paint to canvas.
Yes.
That he's breaking free from the conventions of his time,
Right.
becoming bolder in his execution.
Exactly.
It's in these later works where you really see Goya's genius come through.
I agree.
He's not content to simply depict reality. He's pushing boundaries, using his art to provoke, to unsettle, to make us feel something deeply.
I think that's a great point.
It's like he's tapping into something primal, something raw and emotional that transcends time.
Yeah.
We've seen Goya as a portraitist, a social commentator, a master of technique. But as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Right.
what stands out to you most about his evolution as an artist?
What strikes me is how Goya doesn't shy away from the darkness.
Right.
He lived through a tumultuous period, the Spanish Inquisition, the Napoleonic Wars,
Yeah,
and his art grapples with those anxieties.
I see.
He shows us the beauty of the world, yes, but also its cruelty,
Okay.
its violence.
Right.
And that rawness, that unflinching gaze,
Yeah.
is what makes him so enduring.
It's almost like he's forcing us to confront those uncomfortable truths alongside him. We've touched on Goya's range from portraits to social commentary, but there's also this recurring theme of mythology and allegory in his work.
Yeah.
Specifically, allegory of love, Cupid, and Psyche,
Love that.
and the tantalizing possibility that the model for Psyche
Yeah.
is the same woman who posed for his famous Majas.
Interesting.
Can you talk about the significance of mythology in Goya's work
Sure.
and what this potential connection might reveal about his artistic intentions?
Mythology offered Goya a way to explore universal themes.
Okay.
Love, desire, power, mortality,
Right.
through a lens that was both timeless and relevant to his own time. Remember, the Enlightenment was challenging traditional ways of thinking.
Yeah.
So using these ancient stories allowed Goya to engage with complex ideas
Right.
in a way that resonated with his audience.
So it's like he's using these familiar myths as a springboard to explore deeper questions about human nature.
Exactly.
And if this recurring model theory is true, it adds another layer of intrigue. Is he using this woman to embody certain ideals or concepts across multiple works?
Exactly.
Right.
It makes you wonder if he's drawing parallels between the mythical Psyche and this real-life woman. Psyche represents the soul,
Okay.
the journey of self-discovery.
Right.
Is Goya suggesting something similar about this model,
Yeah.
about her role in his life and art?
Right.
It's like a puzzle waiting to be solved.
It definitely makes you want to dig into Goya's biography
Right.
to see if there are any clues about this mysterious woman
Yeah.
and what she might have represented to him. But let's shift gears for a moment
Okay.
and talk about one of Goya's works that really captures a sense of his social commentary.
All right.
It's a pity you don't have something else to do.
Okay.
This drawing, with its depiction of upper-class Spaniards playing at being peasants,
Yeah.
feels incredibly relevant even today.
Right.
Can you talk about how Goya uses satire to critique the social dynamics of his time?
Well, Goya was a master at pointing out the absurdities of human behavior. In this drawing, he captures the disconnect between the aristocracy
Right.
and the realities of peasant life.
Yeah.
Remember, this was a time of immense social inequality.
Right.
Yet the elite were indulging in this romanticized fantasy of rural life.
Interesting.
Goya is not directly attacking them,
Okay.
but the title, "It's a Pity You Don't Have Something Else to Do,"
Yeah.
drips with irony.
Right.
It's like he's holding a mirror up to society,
Yeah.
inviting us to see the ridiculousness of it all.
It's amazing how art can be both a reflection of its time
Right.
and speak to something universal about human nature.
Hmm.
Centuries later, we still grapple with those same issues of class,
Ah.
privilege, and social inequality.
Yeah.
Goya's satire reminds us that sometimes the best way to address serious topics is through humor
Okay.
and a keen eye for observation.
Absolutely.
Right.
He wasn't preaching or moralizing.
Okay.
He was simply presenting a scene, letting the viewer draw their own conclusions.
Yeah.
But that subtle nudge, that wry observation, is what makes his social commentary so effective.
It's a powerful reminder that art can be a catalyst for conversation even centuries after it was created.
I agree.
Now, as we delve deeper into Goya's journey,
Yeah.
it's impossible to ignore the impact of historical events on his work.
Right.
The late 18th and early 19th centuries in Spain were a time of immense upheaval. How did these turbulent times influence Goya's art?
Oh,
And what specific events or themes find their way into his work?
imagine living through the Spanish Inquisition,
Right?
the French Revolution,
Oh, wow.
the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah,
Goya witnessed it all.
he did.
And these events seep into his art, transforming it from elegant portraits and playful satire to something darker, more visceral.
So it's like the world around him is becoming more chaotic,
Right.
and his art mirrors that shift.
Exactly.
Okay.
He becomes less interested in capturing outward appearances
Right.
and more focused on expressing the inner turmoil,
Mm.
the anxieties of a world on the brink.
Yeah.
One work that exemplifies this shift
Okay.
is the Disasters of War series.
Right.
It's a brutal, unflinching depiction of the horrors of conflict.
Wow.
No romanticized battle scenes here,
Yeah.
just the raw, devastating impact of war on individuals.
It's like he's stripping away the illusions, forcing us to confront the true cost of violence.
Exactly.
And this unflinching gaze extends beyond war.
Right.
We see it in his black paintings as well, this exploration of human darkness.
Yeah.
The grotesque, the nightmarish.
Those black paintings are fascinating.
They are.
Goya created them on the walls of his own home in his later years.
Oh, wow.
Images like Saturn devouring his son and Witch's Sabbath
Mm-hmm.
tap into these primal fears, these unsettling aspects of the human psyche.
It's like he's peering into the abyss,
Yeah,
and what he sees is both terrifying and strangely compelling.
that's right.
It's definitely not your typical feel-good art,
Yeah.
but it speaks to Goya's willingness to explore the full spectrum of human experience, even the darkest corners.
And that's what makes him so relevant today.
Yeah,
We live in a world where we're constantly bombarded with images,
right.
often sanitized or idealized.
Yeah.
Goya reminds us that there's beauty in darkness,
Okay.
truth in ugliness.
Right.
He challenges us to look beyond the surface,
Mm-hmm.
to confront the complexities of the world and of ourselves.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
But let's step back for a moment from these intense themes
Okay.
and revisit a point you made earlier.
Right.
Goya's fascination with mythology.
Right.
We've already discussed Allegory of Love, Cupid, and Psyche, but there are a few other works in this set that draw on mythological themes.
Okay.
Can you talk about how Goya uses these ancient stories to comment on his own time?
Goya was a master at weaving together past and present.
Okay.
He saw the parallels between ancient myths and the events unfolding around him.
Right.
Take his painting The Colossus, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Some interpret it as a depiction of the giant from Greek mythology,
Uh-huh.
but others see it as a symbol of the Napoleonic Wars,
Right.
this overwhelming force crushing everything in its path.
So it's like he's using these mythological figures
Yeah,
to represent the forces at play in his own time.
exactly.
It adds a layer of complexity, allowing him to address potentially sensitive political topics
Right,
through a more allegorical lens.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
a way to engage with those themes without being overtly critical.
Okay.
It's subtle,
Yeah.
but incredibly powerful.
It speaks to Goya's intelligence as an artist,
Right.
his ability to operate on multiple levels. He's not just telling a story, he's inviting us to think,
Yeah.
to interpret, to draw connections between past and present.
And that's what makes Goya so endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
He gives us beauty,
Mm-hmm.
ugliness,
Right.
satire,
Yeah.
darkness mythology,
Right.
all interwoven into this tapestry of human experience.
And that brings us to one of the most intriguing aspects of Goya's career,
Okay.
his artistic evolution. We've seen how he experimented with different techniques in his later works, becoming bolder, more expressive.
Right.
But what specific techniques stand out to you?
Okay.
How do they contribute to the overall impact of his later works?
Well, in his early work, Goya was a master of realism,
Okay.
capturing the details and textures of the world with incredible precision.
Right.
But in his later years, he becomes more interested in conveying emotion,
Yeah.
atmosphere, psychological depth.
Okay.
Loosens his brush strokes, layers paint thickly, sometimes even scratching into the surface to create texture.
So it's like he's moving away from simply representing what he sees to expressing what he feels.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And this shift is evident in the way he uses light and shadow.
Okay.
In his early portraits, light is often soft, even illuminating his subjects in a flattering way.
Right.
But in his later works, light becomes more dramatic. More chiaroscuro, think stark contrasts, deep shadows,
Yeah.
areas of intense illumination.
It's like he's using light to create a sense of drama, of psychological intensity.
That's right.
And this shift in technique seems to go hand in hand with the increasingly dark subject matter we've
That's
described.
absolutely.
Right.
The darkness of his later work, it's not just thematic,
Mm-hmm.
it's visual.
Okay.
Those thick layers of paint, the scratching and scoring,
Yeah.
the dramatic use of light and shadow, They are contribute to a sense of unease,
I
of
agree.
something unsettling lurking beneath the surface.
It's like he's inviting us into his own psychological landscape,
Precisely.
allowing us to experience the world through his eyes.
And that's what makes Goya such a powerful artist.
Right.
He's not afraid to confront the dark side of human nature, to challenge our perceptions, to make us question what we see and how we see it.
And that leads us to a question that has been lingering in my mind throughout our deep dive.
Okay.
What is it about Goya's work that continues to resonate with viewers centuries later? Why are we still drawn to his paintings, his etchings, his drawings?
I think it's his honesty.
Yeah,
Goya doesn't sugarcoat reality.
right.
He shows us the world and all its complexity.
Okay.
The beauty, the ugliness, the joy, the sorrow.
Mhm.
He reminds us that it's okay to feel all of it, to embrace the full spectrum of human experience.
It's like he's giving us permission to be fully human, to
Exactly.
acknowledge the darkness without shying away from it.
And I think in a world that often feels increasingly sanitized and superficial,
Yeah,
that message is more important than ever.
right.
Goya reminds us that there's power in truth, in
Mhm.
authenticity, in facing the shadows alongside the light.
And that honesty, that willingness to explore the full spectrum of human experience is what makes Goya such a compelling artist even centuries later.
Right.
I think that's a great note to wrap up our deep dive into the world of Goya.
Yeah.
We've covered so much ground, from his early portraits to those haunting black paintings.
It's been quite a journey.
Expert speaker, as we look back on everything we've discussed, what would you say is Goya's lasting legacy? How has he influenced the art world, and what can we learn from him today?
Well, Goya's legacy is multifaceted.
Right.
He was a master of technique,
Sure.
pushing the boundaries of painting and printmaking.
Hmm.
He was a chronicler of his time,
Right.
capturing the complexities of Spanish society, the grandeur and the decadence.
Yeah.
But perhaps most importantly,
Yeah.
he was visionary.
Okay.
He didn't shy away from difficult subjects,
Right.
from exploring the darker aspects of human nature.
Yeah.
And in doing so, he paved the way for generations of artists to come.
So he's not just an important figure in art history.
Right.
He's also a relevant voice for our own time.
I agree.
His willingness to grapple with those uncomfortable truths, to expose the hypocrisy and the violence, feels incredibly timely.
Absolutely. Goya's work reminds us that art can be a powerful tool for social commentary,
Right.
for challenging the status quo, for making us think critically about the world around us.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to push boundaries, to provoke, to make us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's something we need now more than ever.
It's like he's saying, don't look away.
Right.
Engage with the world, even the parts that are difficult to see.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to question, to challenge, to think for yourself.
Hmm.
Goya's work is a testament to the power of individual expression,
Right.
of using art to speak truth to power.
What a powerful message.
Yeah,
And I think it's a fitting way to end our deep dive.
it is.
We've explored Goya's range, his technique, his social commentary, his evolution as an artist.
Right.
But ultimately, what stays with me is his courage, his willingness to confront the complexities of the human experience, and to share those insights with the world.
And that's the beauty of art, isn't it?
Mm.
It has the power to connect us across time and space,
Yeah.
to spark conversations, to challenge our perspectives, and to remind us of our shared humanity.
Well said. And to our listeners,
Yes.
we encourage you to continue exploring Goya's work.
Absolutely.
See his paintings in person. If you can delve deeper into his biography and let his art inspire you to think critically
Yes.
and creatively about the world around you.
And remember, there's always more to discover,
Right.
more to learn, more to question.
Keep diving deep.
That's right.
Until next time.